biggest place to be mobbed, but.
Yeah, me too.
Huh?
You speaking? Biggest place to be mobbed.
Everyone's selling a lot of real estate, I guess. Well, thank you guys for coming. Thank you to the people online. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, listings. Some of the people in this room could teach me a few things, I'm sure. But hopefully you'll get something out of this that you can use at your next listing appointment. There's no magic potion to getting listings, okay? This is not what this is about. This is about when someone gives you a phone call or a lead and how you take the next steps to obtain that listing, be professional, set yourself apart from the other person. This is not cold calling expireds, door knocking, or anything like that. So how many people this weekend were out driving around buyers? Anyone? I was skiing. Enjoying time with your granddaughter?
I snuck in an open house in between there. I was going to do a showing for you, but they looked at it already. I was taking naps with my kids.
Nice.
So when you get to the point where you have listing inventory, you do a lot less driving around. How many people made an offer this weekend on a multiple offer property? Anyone? Just one. All right. When you are the listing agent, you can sit in your living room and have those offers come to you through Dotloop, as opposed to being the one who's trying to counsel and be psychologist to your buyer and trying to get them to make an offer that's close to asking instead of 30,000 below on a property that's been on a week. So the goal with listings, and you probably heard it since Lewis's real estate class, is listings, listings, listings. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Real estate 101 to the novice person, to the person who's out there looking for a home. It's all about locations. You don't want to be next to the dump, but for us, we want to have for sale signs in the yard. That's how we generate calls. That's how our business grows, and it really helps us get to the next level. I always find that the most commonly asked questions at a listing appointment, there's two. Why should I list with you? And what are you going to do differently than the last agent to get my home sold? And that's kind of the look I used to have when people would ask me that question. It was, oh my God, why should they list with me? I never had a clean answer for that. The goal with today's presentation is to give you the answer to that question, or at least put yourself in a position so that question is not asked anymore. If you give them the information that they need to make a decision to list with you, they're not even going to ask you these questions. So you're not going to be that person who looks like the deer stuck in the headlights. Anyway, I always feel that it's important to win the listing, not to buy it. Has anyone been in a position where they've competed with another agent and told them a completely ridiculous price that's nowhere near attainable? And then you find out who that agent is and you look them up and they either have no listings or they have 25 listings active and none of them are selling because their model is to buy a listing as opposed to win the listing. If you position yourself in the correct way, and we're going to talk about this stuff, again, you won't be asked those questions. You'll come across as the professional, the person who's giving them the information that they need that the other agent isn't prepared to give them so that you don't feel like you have to buy the listing. And this is just a little cartoon that I saw that I thought was funny. So, you're sure my house is worth $25K more than everyone else says it is? And the realtor's got the Pinocchio nose because he just wants his sign in the yard. In my opinion, there's detriment to just putting a sign in the yard for 6 months in today's real estate market. So what we want to do is we want to position yourself as a real estate expert in the marketplace. We want to create value that sets you apart. We want you to know your competition. In certain markets that I sell in, I know who the other players are in that area. I know what they offer, and I always try to one-up them. Okay. Limit the number of overpriced listings you take. Listings are great, but they cost money, and they create headache. And in today's real estate market, where property is, inventory levels are at a 2 to 3 month absorption rate, having a sign in the yard for 6 or 8 months is a negative on your business, not a positive. Most sellers have short memories, and they will only remember the price you agreed to, not the price that you told them it was really worth. So when you come in at $300 and you list it at $350, you're telling them you think you have a chance of getting in an offer at $350, even though it's not possible. That's what they're thinking. Okay. You need to go in as a professional, provide data that supports your price. And I'm not saying there's not some flexibility in that, but be smart about it. When you overprice a listing, you'll pay the price later on. Because I love being agent number 2. Agent number 2 gets the price, gets the house at the price it's supposed to be at. Because agent number 1 agrees to overprice it.
Can you give them a value? Do you give them a dollar figure or a range?
I give them a range, but I have a feeling on it. You know, I make sure that it's not a big range, though. I mean, it's $15,000 to $20,000 tops. You know, anyone could come in there and say, "Hey, your house is going to sell between $250 and $300." Well, what good are we then? You know, I think you need to give a right number, but I do try to say, you know, I'll give them a $15,000, $20,000 range, but I'll really narrow it down to $10,000 if I'm really confident about it.
And it depends on the price of the house.
Right. Depends on what market it's in.
$600,000 house, 20,000 isn't a big percentage.
I agree.
200, 20 or 30,000 might be a lot.
I agree. And
The only time I go above a $20,000 number is if it's a really weird house or a really unique house. Listen, because it doesn't fit into the mold.
there's no
I'm gonna
box
have to-
for it.
Right, I'm gonna have to give you a wider range. Right, let's try it here.
And, you know, I would go one step further. When you have a unique house, don't be afraid to bring somebody else in. Get a second opinion. I've done that before. You know, Manuel's not going to step on my toes. I'm not going to step on your toes. I think it creates credibility as a company. I think it, again, creates credibility for you as the agent, just saying, look, you've got a log cabin in Worcester. There's none of them here. How do we price this thing? I'm going to bring somebody else in to look at it, and we're going to brainstorm together. I just think it's all about credibility. I already talked about how a negative impact it can be to have yard signs in your yard for too long. Pre-appointments. So I am a two-step listing appointment person, and I know some people do it one step, but I believe in creating value. I believe anyone can go out there and try to price a house without seeing it, but if you want to set yourself apart and be different, it's more work. It's 2 appointments, so it's, you know, probably 2 hours of extra work for each transaction that I do for a listing. But I've had people say you've already done more work than the previous person I interviewed, because that person showed up with a generic CMA and knew nothing about their house and told them a price. I think if you go in there and the first meeting, I do not believe in talking about price, but we'll talk about a few things. So someone calls you on the phone and says, hey, Sally just referred me to you. I heard great things about you. I'm interviewing agents. Okay, so you know there's going to be multiple people in there. You have a step in the door, a foot in the door, potentially ahead of that other agent because you were referred, but you still have to get that person to trust you and to believe that you're confident enough to sell their house. So I researched them, and I'll give you an example. I had a property in Sutton 2 years ago. It was a unique Tudor home, and the gentleman was an agent before, and he was trying to sell it on his own for a long time, and he found me and he called me, cold called me. I showed up at the appointment to sell his house, and he knew everything about me. He knew that my house was built by the same builder that had built his house 20 years ago, even though I wasn't the original owner. He knew things about me and my background, every company I've worked for, everything. This is what your clients are doing, and I feel it's important for you to do it back to them as well, so that when you go in there, not to stalk them, but to be able to create, it's sales 101. Build rapport, just know a little something. Maybe there's a friend on Facebook that's, you know, a common friend. I wouldn't go in there and say, hey, I know we're friends with Sally on Facebook, but I would find a way to bring up something that might bring her up so that you can then make a common connection with that person. Find little things that connect you guys, okay? I always go back 10 years, search the MLS, see what the house looked like before, so I get an idea of, you know, what we're looking at. So when I'm talking to them on the phone, I try to get a sense of updates that they have done. I'm starting to prepare a price in my mind, but I still do it in 2 steps, okay? Search public record, MLS, city and town. Make sure square footage is accurate. Make sure things match up. Search the deed. See if there's an easement. I just had one where a driveway was not on the property. We found out after closing. See if there's any easements or anything that may impact value. If they don't own the driveway and there's an easement to travel to get to the house, in my opinion, that affects value. Okay, Mario, what do you think? Butch,
Absolutely.
you come across those where, there's, you think it's a waterfront home, but there's a right of way for 25 neighbors, and this happened on Stiles Reservoir, to have access to the water, and then a strip of land that went across my client's backyard. So even though it's waterfront, their neighbors could have a picnic, and they did, on their frontage, because there was an easement on it. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't look at the deed. Okay? Get an idea of approximately how much they owe. Your delivery on price, in my opinion, is much more impactful when you have an idea of how they know, because you can tailor that delivery. If you know they're upside down, you're not going to come in and be like, "Well, I got great news for you. Your house is $300,000, you owe $350." That's not going to be great news for them. So your delivery is based on the information that you gather, and how much they owe is going to be very important.
And if they're upside down, you don't want to begin the conversation with, "Hey, your house is perfect for a shop sale."
Right.
You don't want to start them off. You want to get there with ease, softly.
Again, the two-step CMA, be professional. We all wear jeans around here, and I do as well. But if I have a listing appointment that day, step it up a notch. You're being judged the second you pull in the driveway. Go to the car wash your car off. When I meet with a financial advisor coming to my house or anything, I'm doing the same. I'm judging them. Are they going to take on my biggest asset? It's a shallow world we live in, unfortunately, but there are certain things that people want to know their agent has the ability to sell their home, and how we present ourselves is very important to it. So step it up, at least wear a button-down shirt and some pants if you're a male, or woman attire, I'm not sure, what to do with that, but, a sport coat, just don't pull up like you just came from the gym. It's not going to do you any favors. First meeting is there to view the house, build rapport, find out the seller's goals. I present my resume, my sales history, and my marketing plan. I do it all at this time because when I come back and give them the price, I want them to already basically be looking at me as potentially their agent. I want to be the person that they're already ready to go with regardless of the price that I tell them, because of my history, my background, and my marketing plan. Price becomes secondary if you build yourself up as a professional. When I say secondary, obviously if I'm $50,000 below another agent, it means something. But if I'm $10,000 below and I can show them my background and my sales record, they're going to have more confidence in me to get the job done. Confidence, excuse me.
Question. What if you really don't have a track record?
Use your company's track record, and don't be afraid to bring somebody in if you've never had a listing. Get 50% of something. It's better than 100% of nothing. And I think a lot of agents are hesitant to bring in another agent to secure a listing, and they lose it. I think bring in somebody who's been in the business for a while, who has a track record. You can highlight how great it is that they're going to have a new agent at their beck and call for everything, but then they're going to have an experienced agent, giving the background support and maybe negotiating the offer, but the new agent's enthusiasm and time. Okay. But I think that's where new agents go wrong the most. I think my first 4 or 5 listings, I always brought somebody in on the listing appointment. Yes, I had to give them a percentage, but it was my assignment in the yard, not theirs. That was the agreement. The second meeting, I'm big on market reports. How many people use market reports? If you're not using market reports, I think you're missing a huge opportunity. So some of the market reports that I use, I always start with an on-the-market snapshot. I think that's the most, in today's market, actually this works in both markets. The on-market snapshot, I think, is effective in a down market and in the current market we're at. So I printed out Worcester, and I go 1 year back, and sometimes I'll go 2 years back if I need to show them even more. So I always, let's look at the $200,000 to $300,000 price range. And I use this to illustrate where we're at in the marketplace. This is great with buyers, by the way. If you've got a buyer who's making lousy offers out there, this tool is the best tool you're going to show them, because most people are visual and they think we're just making things up. But if you can print this off right from the MLS and show them this, or email it to them, I'll send an email off to buyers. I'm trying to get a couple listings to come on the market now, and I've emailed this to them to say this is why you should list your house today as opposed to waiting. So if you look at the price range between 200,000 to 300,000, a year ago today there were 78 combined listings in that price range. This year there's 53, so there's 25 less listings to sell. It's 33% almost decline in inventory. Is that not something that can bump somebody off the fence about selling their home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so use these reports. I think they're awesome. Also at the bottom, you know, if they're in Worcester, I'll do a Worcester one, but I'll also do a zip code specific one because it breaks it down even further. But I always, you know, show them the bottom total, you know, 234 to 174 today. Show them the combined. On this one, I even went back a year further to show them, okay, the market got better last year, and here's why it started getting better. Because 2 years ago, compared to today, there were 104 listings. Now there's 53. You're talking just under 50% decrease in inventory. Gigantic. Does that make sense to people? Do you know where to find these reports? Do you know where to find these reports? Okay. After this, I'll show you where you can find them. They're on the report section of the MLS. And then what I show them is I go over pending sales and sold data. Now in this market where the houses are selling quickly, I'm not going to show them 12 months of pending sales. I'm just going to show them the last 3 months. And because many of the houses take anywhere from 45 to 60 days to close, so it covers most of them. If you look at that same price range, okay, so let's go back to the market snapshot. You have 53 active listings. In the last 3 months, 101 houses have gone pending. Double the amount of inventory has gone pending in the last 3 months. Is that enough for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, to put your house on the market today? Do you think these tools are effective in getting your point across about, you know, where the inventory levels are today? And again, from a buyer's agent perspective, is this effective in helping them generate a better offer for a house? Then, hey, it's been on, Tracy was just talking about one, they've been calling him today. She came in $30,000 under on a bank owned property with multiple offers. Do you think if the agent maybe showed her this and said, well, hey, between 100 and 150, you know, this is how many houses are for sale, and this is how many have gone pending. We don't have enough inventory there to make a $30,000 under asking price offer. Right? So use these to your advantage. And then the last page is the total sold market statistics in the last 3 months. 99 houses have closed in that price range of 200 to 300. So there's a real sweet spot in the market. So if you've got a listing coming on in that price range, or maybe you've got a listing coming on that you really recommend $299 and they want $315 for it, could something like this maybe sway them to keep it under $300,000 because there's a sweet spot in the real estate market in that town or in that city? So find ways to use these tools to your advantage to get sellers to price the house correctly. Because sometimes just jumping up over a threshold, and $300,000 would be a threshold, okay, and price in the way buyers search for homes, could be the difference of the house selling in the first weekend with multiple offers, and maybe, you know what, maybe they get $310 because the house was priced really aggressively. But if they put it on at $315, it could take them 3 months to get $310. So you're going to find out what their motivations are too. Okay, but use the reports. I think they're huge. I'll load Trump up.
Big league.
I think it's important to know your numbers. And to Jeannie's question, if you don't have numbers, use your office numbers. Partner with somebody who has numbers. It makes a difference. In today's real estate environment, everyone and their brother and mother is getting their license. So you're going to go on listing appointments and you're going to hear, well, my daughter just got licensed, or my nephew just got licensed. Well, how do you get them to list with you when your family, when their family is now real estate agents? You have to show them value because they won't feel as guilty of not going with their nephew if they know that there's value in working with you. So If you don't have a if you have a track record, don't be afraid to share it with the seller. You should be able to tell the seller how many properties you listed in the previous year. Again, use the company numbers if you can't. How many you sold. And I do feel pendings are very impressive because they're things that are going on right now. So if you have 10 pending sales and you sit down at a listing appointment and you say, right now I have 10 pending listings, that's going to make a huge difference, okay? So in 2014, you know, this goes back to not just putting a sign in any yard. I didn't have a lot of listings. I had 17, and I was fortunate enough to sell 100% of them. In 2015, I sold 24 listings. I had 3 that expired, so that was 88%. And in 2016, I closed on 34 listings, 4 that expired. Now, others had expired, but I sold them in that same year. So I don't have them listed as expired. I do have them listed as sold. But ones that actually expired that either haven't relisted or relisted with somebody else, those are the numbers there that you see. Do you think that numbers like that impact a seller? So there's a lot of companies out there that push getting listings, okay? And I love competing against an agent that's carrying 25 listings with 2 pending sales. Because their goal, and I say this in my marketing, in my presentation to them, I am not an agent who's going to take 25 listings. My goal is not to carry 25 listings. My goal is to have 5 listings and sell all 5 and just keep that motor going and keep it flowing that way. Because when it's nice, you think it looks nice to have 25 listings active on the MLS, but if your days on market are 90, 120, 80, then as an agent, I'll find a way to use that against you. So I think it's more important to take listings that are priced correctly and sell them. We talked a little bit about what I did this weekend. My business now with listings, I'm able to work differently. So this year I had 58 sales. 34 of them were listings. The previous year I had around 44 sales. 24 of them were listings. The previous year was 43 sales. 17 were listings. My number of buyers have remained the same because I really think there's a threshold. There's a certain number that you can't surpass when you work with buyers. Good luck getting to 58 transactions if all you do is work with buyers. You will not sleep. You will not have a weekend to yourself, and your family will hate you. I'm just being honest with you. If you still have it. But the nice thing is that this year I did more transactions than I've ever done in my career, and I've worked less weekends than ever. I can't tell you the last weekend that I've worked. I still work with buyers, but I'm able to structure them a little bit differently. But it frees up so much time in your life if you have listings and listings that sell. Right now my inventory is low. I was able to take a little break from real estate for a month, so I've fallen behind and now I'm gearing back up. But when you have inventory in this market, your phone will ring and you will make money. Okay? If you are a buyer's agent strictly in this market, you're going to have a lot of multiple offers. You're going to write 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 offers with buyers before some of them get accepted. Where when you have the listing, it's really money in the bank. Seller wants to know they're working with a professional that sells houses. Again, they want to know that you have a background selling houses. They feel like anyone can sell a house in this market, and you have to let them know that that's not necessarily the case. They still need to work with somebody who's an expert. Their nephew might be brand new to real estate, and maybe he is the right person for them, but maybe he's not, and there's a reason why they should use a person with a track record. Be different, stand out from the competition. I always try to do something that's different. If I know everyone in my marketplace is just showing up with a generic CMA, then I'm doing 2 steps. I do these 80% of the time. If I help the people buy the house and I know the house and I've been there in the last year, I'm probably not going to do it 2-step CMA. There's no point in wasting that time. But if they're a lead or if they're a referral, right off the bat on the phone call, I prepare them. I say, this is how I do my market analysis. I don't think it's fair to you or for me to price your house without seeing it. Do you agree with that? Yes, I agree. And they bought into it right away. So when the next agent comes, who just shows up with a Zillow, basically, you know, you're one step ahead of them. Okay, so I believe in the two-step CMA, personally. The more visual facts and data you can provide, the more pricing opinion is validated. So that's why I use things like market reports. If the other agents are not using market reports and you show up and you show them statistical data from the MLS, are you already setting yourself apart from Joe Schmo who came in and just threw them a CMA and said, this is what I think your house is worth?
Have you ever had a client push you for an answer that day? They're expecting you to give you some kind of price range?
I say, I don't know, I have to go back and do my homework. I just don't want to be put in a box. Because if you give them that price and you come back 2 days later with a different price, but you said, it doesn't matter. It's just like when I have contractors at my house and I'm like, come on, just give me a roundabout. I know why they don't want it, because they don't want to be held to it. And you're going to be held to that number you give them. Offer at least one thing in your marketing plan that competitors in your marketplace are not offering. Everyone's using professional photography, or a lot of people are. So that used to be a tool that I used to set myself apart from people, but now it's becoming more commonplace in the market. Before, there weren't even photographers around. I think there was like one or two. Now there's a bunch. I do floor plans. These are interactive floor plans. They're a lot of work, but clients love them, especially in the higher end homes. You know, standard 1,000 square foot ranch, I'm not necessarily going to do an interactive floor plan, but if it's a higher end home with a unique layout, or even if it's a colonial, this is something that with professional photography, the interactive floor plan, they can tour the house using the professional photography, and it's a great tool. This year, I haven't used it yet on a house because it's for higher end listings, but I'm going to be doing Matterport tours. Matterport tours are like a video game of a house. Literally, you tour a house, you see every nook and cranny of a home. It's a pretty incredible tool, but I'm not going to use that on lower end listings. It'll water down the meaning of that type of tour. So professional photography, drone footage. If you have a unique property, a farm or something on the water, a drone photograph, if your competition is not wanting to spend the money, it's $150. You know, and it might be a $12,000 commission. I think you can spend that money. You've got to put out money to make money, and you've got to be different. So I'm always looking for something that, as people are starting to adopt these other things, one-up them. Always be different.
What would be one thing you'd use for a lower listing? Because these seem to be more higher end.
I do professional photography on every listing. We talk about Facebook boost. I don't know how many agents are coming in there and explaining how they boost, how you can choose a demographic on Facebook, and I can target market to this demographic. I think your home is perfect for first-time home buyers in Worcester, Auburn, and Sutton, and I'm going to create a Facebook boost that's tailor-made to it. And I'm going to, and I'll show them a screenshot of a Facebook boost that I did that shows that 3,000 people in one day viewed this property. And if another agent's not using that tool, well, there's something different that you can stand out using. But even lower end listings, there are different. I'm going to send just listed postcards to your neighborhood. Now, to me, I don't think just listed postcards do much. But to that person, your 50 closest neighbors are going to know your house is for sale. And sometimes they may have a friend who wants to live in this neighborhood. So that postcard might be the thing that grabs them. So I always look, you can find blog posts about current trends in real estate marketing. There's a million things online at your fingertips. I just found it's been helpful for me to be able to one-up my competition. So we go back to the commonly asked questions at a listing appointment. Now this is how I feel. I don't feel the stress of why should I list with you. I've created something that hopefully through marketing and being different, through data. I didn't get into how I do my CMAs, but my CMAs I do more appraisal style than just take generic comps. Here's 20 comps of houses that sold. Where do you think you fall? I break it down and I do adjustments on pricing for number of bathrooms, square footage, garage spaces, central air, condition, so that I show them based on my experience, this is what I feel the value difference for those types of adjustments are. So I can come up with more of a.
I mean, there's no set amount on those adjustments, it's just kind of your own opinion of.
Well, they're
what you
from
come
looking at
across.
appraisals over the years, and
But I'm saying
seeing how
that
they adjust things.
you've kind of in your mind put a number on a garage or.
Yeah, it took
whatever.
years to come
Yeah,
up with,
sure,
with how to do this.
yeah.
No one, I remember when I started at a Century 21, I'm like, how do we do CMAs? And they're like, just find like houses, and well, what if one has a fireplace and one doesn't? Oh, well, you find a number you think works. Like there was never, so it's just years of looking at my buyers' appraisals
Mhm.
and seeing how they adjusted for square footage and seeing what they gave for a finished basement. They're pretty close to each other. Does anyone else do adjustments on their CMAs? I think they're valuable. Again, it's just
So when you
Adding
get that
value.
information from previous, appraisal.
Or sales, you can
Yeah.
search of similar price range homes. 5 houses have no fireplace.
No, I know, but they're not giving you a kind of a number per item.
No,
That's
you-
what
No,
appraisal does,
I think that's why it takes a.
right.
number of
2-bedroom to
years.
3-bedroom. What's the value difference between the two? Well, in Worcester, the 2-bedroom homes are selling for this, the 3-bedroom homes are selling for that, and you get your number. Home without a basement, a slab ranch. What's the difference? What a slab ranch is selling for in Worcester, and one's with basement. Then you kind of got to get an idea that way.
I see.
If
You
we
gotta
can't
search back
answer
a
those
year.
questions,
At least a year.
Sometimes you can look on your field cards, and the assessors to the town will have a dollar figure
yeah.
for certain things.
But if we can't answer those questions, then we price a house with a 3-bedroom ranch, 1 bath with a basement to a 3-bedroom ranch, 1 bath without a basement. If we price them the same, shame on us, because they're not the same. So what value are you adding as a real estate agent? You're not adding any. So these are the things you need to be aware of and do your homework on and talk to people in the office. Hey, I've got this type of scenario. What do you think of that? I think you got to bounce things off people. I've come to Mattio many times. I talked to Tony. I got this unique situation. What do we do? Questions. I didn't want this to make just to be about things that I see, but what are you guys seeing? Or what do you have questions about? Why have you lost a listing in the past to somebody else? I'd be curious to hear. Do you know why you may have lost to somebody else?
If I lose, it's normally on price. Somebody bought the listing. They gave them a much higher price or cheaped out the commission.
Right.
How do you decide if they get the price?
If it's a referral, it's harder to walk away from. If it's not a referral, I have no problem closing up my book and saying, I'm not. There's something called a takeaway close, okay? And that's kind of just being very tactful in your approach and just saying, I remember there's been a few I'm sitting down and we're not agreeing on price and I just don't think it's going to look good. So I close up my book and I give them my market analysis and I would say, well, you should keep this for your record, but I don't think I'm a good fit. And there have been many times where I've gotten a call back. I know I haven't been the most expensive in their price, but I was the only one who stood by my gun and didn't buy. And I use that and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm negotiating, I will be negotiating your contract too on your sale. And it's the same thing with this. If I believe in your price, I will stand by your house 100%, and I will negotiate 100% on your behalf. And if they feel like you're invested in them, they're going to be more than just, they're going to be more apt to list with you than just buying the listing. It really just comes down to the little things. Not one of these makes a difference, but maybe each one added to a whole make a difference. I think if you can take one little thing and add it to your presentation, and then next year you listen to someone else who does something and add that to your presentation, now you become professional. Everyone has their real estate license. I mean, what's the numbers going to be this year? Like 3 million? I don't know.
Too many, and it's too easy to get in. You got to go to school, pass a test, you're gonna get a 70 to pass. And not that the stuff you learn in a real estate class is really gonna help you be successful, but anyone can get a license to go up and say I'm an agent. But whether or not that turns into anything.
But, and
Look how many get out of the business
Right.
when the down market was 2006 to 2012. They all got out.
Right.
Now it's good, they're all getting in.
so I think you let them know, anyone can be a real estate agent, but not anyone can sell you, not just anyone can sell you a home. And here's why. We've all been new, and we know how hard and how long it takes to start making money in this business. If you're a new agent, that's why I think it's key to partner with somebody, at least on your first handful of listings. You go in cold turkey on a listing appointment, never been on one, unless it's a family member, you're gonna have a tough time, I think, getting that listing. Bring somebody in, use your newness to your advantage by having a senior agent or an experienced agent with a background who can offset that newness and take that piece of the anxiety off the seller. They'll be ecstatic to have someone any call at any time, but they'll also be happy to know that they're going to have someone watching their back.
Or go
With
with them,
experience.
go with an experienced person, shout them when they're doing a presentation, really helpful. Then you don't feel, when you do go to your first one, you don't feel so jittery. You know what's going on, what they do, how to do it. Anything that's gonna make you feel more comfortable when you're actually finally sitting inside of the space. That's what helped me, and helped my team.
No, I agree. Any other questions? I give a range between, if it's a higher end house, probably around $20,000 range. I feel it's our job to be able to come close. So to give this crazy big range is not good, I don't think. So I will go out on a limb and I will say, I think your house is gonna sell. But the maximum is $20,000. That's like on an $800,000 house.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with a $200,000 house, I'm trying to be around $10,000 of what I think the value difference is. And I think we should know, unless there's a crazy home inspection issue that comes up that I'm not aware of.
So you give a range of 210 to 220. What's the maximum you'd consider listing it at?
If I give a 220 range,
210 to 220.
I'll tell them
That's the range.
I want to list it at 219.9. And they'll say, well, how about we go a little higher? I'll go 5,000.
Provided they give you automatic price reduction. Or
No, I mean, I don't think 5,000 is going to make or break a sale. So I will take it $5,000 higher if they're really pushing for it. But I don't think going 10 grand higher is in your as an agent's best interest or theirs as a seller. Don't get me wrong, I have some listings that are selling right now. I made mistakes on price. I thought they were priced right, and then I just had two fall apart because of home inspection issues. We got offers in the range, but one of them didn't even finish the home inspection. So now when I relist it, it's going to have to be lower. I was wrong. Missed something.
It's not wrong. It's an opinion.
No,
I mean, you have your
It's an
opinion.
information.
Somebody would have come in higher, somebody else would come in lower.
I agonize over price. I don't know. I think that's the hardest thing we do. I think it's the most important.
I would just like to, appraisers is just basically doing the job to try to justify what someone's going to pay.
How many appraisers tell you, I'd much
Ask
rather
me
do
what's
a
the offer.
purchase appraisal than a refi appraisal where they have to set the value. They know there's a number and they just have to meet it now. We've done all the work for them.
Right, the value is basically set by what the buyer would pay for it. That's the reality of it, they're just trying to justify that with their appraisal.
How do you handle it? We've got an appraisal and it was this number. How do you answer that question?
Andy knows that
If
one.
I look at the comps and those comps make sense, I'll go by it. But if it's, I saw one not too long ago, I was selling a 2-bedroom house in Worcester, single family detached, and 3 of the comps were attached. They're not even like property.
Yeah, that's weird.
So I'm not going to use an appraisal like that. I've had times where I can't price a house and I'll recommend they get an independent appraisal and I'll take it off my commission when it sells. There are times where we might be miles apart on price. I've got a house in Millbury. I'm just dealing with people for over a year. It's not listed. They want way more than I think it's worth. And I told them, have an appraisal. And if I think if the comps look good and it's justifiable, we'll list it at that price. It's okay to be wrong if it can be justified.
Right. Can we just, I mean, maybe not now, but whatever, because like you went over these so quick, because you know them inside out and backwards, and I'm trying to follow as quick as you were going.
And when you look at, the most important one, I think, right now is the on-market snapshot.
Yep,
So the left side, it's color-coded if you PDF it.
right,
So left side is 2016, a year ago today.
gotcha.
Right side is pink, and that's today's market.
All right, so between 200,000 and 300,000, there was
So I'm
78
pretending my listing's a 250 house. Okay, so it falls kind of in the middle of that. So I would show them
that there were 78 houses, and now there are
53.
53. And, but what is, so you're just showing that there's basically 25% less.
I'm
Oh, I'm
using,
sorry, 33%.
I'm
less
using
on
this
the
to
market.
push the urgency with the seller to sell now. I use that for this, for that
But you're
purpose.
showing that there's 33% less homes on the market,
Right.
basically.
And that's why you should consider listing your home.
Gotcha. Because the inventory's low and.
Now, on the flip side, if I'm in a market that's totally different with saturated inventory, then we're going to use this in a different way. We're going to use this to show them, all right, only 6 houses have sold between 200 and 250, and there's currently 45 for sale. How do we make you one of the 6 houses to sell? So you use that in your pricing strategy.
I think the average time on the market, if it's 60 or 70 days and only 6 are sold and it's 40, so you might not sell for a couple of years.
Right. And then you get them to understand the value between properly pricing their home.
Right.
You know, it's lower.
Yeah, right.
And that's when you change it from a comparative market analysis to be a competitive market analysis. Would you like to beat these other houses?
Right.
You know,
Do you think it's harder to price a home when the market's really, really good than it is when it's not as good?
I think they present their equal challenges.
I think sellers.
I actually think sometimes it's easier to price it in a harder market because you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
you have an idea of why, you know, houses aren't selling in certain price points. And in this market, I feel you don't want to underprice it and you don't want to overprice it. And if you price it to sell at the open house with 15 offers, you know, the mentality of the seller is you did something wrong. So I don't know. I feel like it's harder to do it in this market.
Yeah.
I think there's more agents that are willing to take an overpriced listing right now, too.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's take a shot at it. Right. And I'll talk to you next month.
Yeah, just do a CMA every month on it, just say, here's where we stand this month, I mean, things change. Or say if it's not working in 30 days,
It's local right down to the town, sometimes the neighborhoods in which you sell it. So when Maki is on Fox News and he's talking about the housing market report and he's saying giving a generic number of which it is, well, Leicester may not be experiencing that. Well, it is not experiencing the same as Wellesley. So you have to even break it down even more so. But people wrap their head around what they see on the news. So I think the challenges are just having talk tracks in place to overcome certain objectives. In the down market, I always say, well, my neighbors sold for $350,000 4 years ago. Well, that was before the crash, sir. You know, have you watched the news and seen what's gone on since then and explain to them why that's, you know, happening? Or in an up market, the market's up 15% than what it was a year ago. Well, no, we're not even really back to where we were before the crash. So you have to know how to answer those questions and have talk tracks. You know, I'll talk to myself on the ride sometimes, preparing myself for things I'm going to say to them, talking to myself in the mirror or whatever, and just be ready. You know, certain types of people are going to have certain objections, and you should know. That's why that first meeting, man, you're reading them, getting a sense of what kind of person this is. This is an engineer who's looking at the numbers. Do I got to come back with a spreadsheet, you know, to really break it down for this person, or is this person just going to take me as a professional and go on my word? Maybe your presentation is different for that. That's why I like 2 steps. You get a sense of who you're dealing with and how to present the material. There was a time in the down market, I was like a doctor coming out of a doctor with bad news. Like you're coming out and you're telling them the house is worth $50,000 less than what they paid for it. So your presentation is not going to be all bubbly and cheery, you know.
think you're better agent.
What's that?
Made you a better agent. You could sell property at down market.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
What about land sales? Do you do that?
I do enough of it. How to make a living just selling land. But what's your specific
But I
question?
just wondering, it seems like it's harder to price than it is for the home. 'Cause it's not a lot, the area that I'm working in that's sold a lot. I mean, builders are snatching up. So your comps are like a year, 2 years old.
Right. Yeah, land, I think you can, I mean, there's definitely an uptick in new construction. There are more people looking for land. Well, a couple of things have happened with land. Not only are builders snatching it up as spec houses, but people are actually, regular buyers are purchasing land again to build custom homes, where land for many years didn't sell. Because you couldn't get a loan on land. You couldn't get construction loans. Those didn't exist for a while. So there's a lot of things that are moving in there. I personally feel you should increase your commission on it. You know, it's a $50,000 piece of land. So I just sold a $40,000 piece of land, and I made sure it was 10%. Doing the same amount of work, maybe even more, because you might have to go through some meetings and gotta get people up to.
Years ago, land was only managed by a certain number of real estate agents who understand the zoning regulations, bylaws. And it was always 10%. And then when everybody got into real estate, I'll list your land, they didn't know what they were doing, but they did it at 6% or 5%. So they actually lowered our value by cheaping out the fee, but they didn't do a good job for their clients. So now it's starting to get back to the only people who deal with land. People who've done it in the business know how to search and find out, well, how many lots can we get, what's the frontage. So that's changing. I see the land prices have come down a lot because the market still hasn't recovered. So builders always want to steal the land, but the price to build homes today is only installation things. It's tough for builders to make a profit. Stretch energy code's tough. The permitting, to just get permits to tie into town water, town sewer, those numbers have gone up really a lot. Tougher to make.
I look at it, the market goes down, really the land gets back. House costs are house costs. Those very little, they grow a little bit by year, they change colors, they grow. I mean, the house is thick, they're always going to be kind of thick. Like a lot of those got crushed with the market downturn. They had so much land at that point. What were they going to do? They just sit in the land, let the land go. A lot of the builders sit in the land forever because
A lot of big, very successful builders went belly up, over leveraged. So, yeah.
they own too much land, and then my hand is with.
But Matty, he can talk about, land's a great opportunity to build a relationship with a builder. If you get a builder who comes in unrepresented, if you sell them the land, then you work something out that you get the listings on the backside, and that's part of your contract. So, there are good opportunities with land. Land doesn't typically sell overnight unless it's fairly priced for a builder to come in and grab it. But the good news on land is that traditional homeowners are able to purchase. I'm seeing more, regular people buying land and getting construction loans. I've seen the last 7, 8 years. The new construction demand is way up because for 6 years they didn't build houses. So you look at a town like Auburn, anything that's coming on new is pretty much going really quick.
I got a building meeting tonight on 2 lots I put under agreement on Tinker Hill. The builder hasn't even closed on it. We've got a meeting tonight to talk about somebody who's going to maybe buy both new construction houses. Great.
Yeah, my last 2 in Auburn, I pre-sold before they even came on. Land's a good opportunity. Multifamilies, really, it's no different pricing. The key to multifamilies and listing is, I think the more you can prepare your sellers, the better off you are. If there are tenants in place, you got to get the tenants on board. If you can't show the house, you can't sell the house. Even if you get an offer, if they're not vacating an occupied home and they're supposed to, it's going to draw out that closing a lot. So you need to know how to position yourself with multifamilies.
For a lot more work too, so
Yeah.
I would be It would be hard pressed for me to want to take an overpriced one. Because you can call it. Oh, it works with.
A lot of people do parade showings, I call them now, where
That's what I do.
you got 2 hours on a Saturday. If your buyer can't come, tough luck. They're still in the house because multifamilies are hot. So, but really, from a pricing strategy, price it correctly. You get multiple offers, get over asking price. But you overprice it, and it could sit 60 days. And guess who they're coming to? Now, if a house doesn't sell in 60 days, they're upset. 60 days 10 years ago was 8 years ago was normal.
Just getting warmed
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I needed 6 to 8 months to sell some listings back then. But today, 60 days, and they're panicking. I put a house on, it was a week, and we already had 2 showings. And I'm like, why aren't there offers? So you've got to prepare people and make sure you do it correctly, because 60, you start hitting 90, 120 days, they're going to start calling on their agent. And you listed it at their price instead of your price, and you probably would have ended up at the same place. So a listing at 300, a multifamily, let's say at, in Grafton Hill, that's in great condition. I don't know. Let's say your numbers come out at $299, and they want $325. Try to price it at $299. You'll probably get like $310, $315 maybe for it. Where if you price it at that upper price point, you may not get offers from it. Market will set itself. I really don't feel there's underpriced listings. I think right now that the market, if you price a house $5,000 incorrectly, if you were wrong, you will get the offers that adjust that price.
House came on, over the weekend, Lorna Drive, 219. I went in there,
So, yeah.
Three,
I-
3, 4.
free Lorna, yeah, I was interested for myself, it
Yeah,
was
looks
too
good.
small and needed too much work. But I said, how many people do you have through? I went towards the end. He says, yeah, 50 or 60, I ran out of, I can't count anymore.
Yeah.
It was
I
insane.
was there, it was crazy.
What do you say?
I was just wondering on the multis, Tracy you probably know this. Are the investors and the buyers, are they leaving the tenants in? I know 15 years ago, I sold a ton of multis, and they all wanted the tenants out.
It depends on the investor. I've had, I like the ones who want to leave them because it's much easier.
Yeah.
But I've seen them come in and write offers with saying, keep the tenants out. Basically, that's a big negotiating point.
Yeah.
We'll get one out, baby, but not empty the house.
I'm seeing a lot more FHA buyers out there, first-time buyers. I have a few of them who are looking at multis. Obviously, they need a unit to occupy. I'm not seeing buildings being vacated, but I am seeing one-off apartments here or there for owner.
It's definitely more valuable. I have no sales stated. Trying to get more tenant out, the backup spring. If we would have had many offers at this price, the better. Because they were all FHA or occupiers.
Yeah, owner occupied, in my opinion, dealing with multis will pay more. They're buying to live in, they're buying emotionally, they're buying neighborhood, with the investors, it's pure numbers. So if you can have one unit unoccupied, I think it's solid.
Those are good, but it's still almost cover cost.
Yeah, I mean, they're almost back to what they were at the peak of the market. They're close to value of what they were.
A 3-bedroom house on Vernon Hill, a 3-bedroom apartment on Vernon Hill, renting for $1,200 a month, was unheard of years ago. But that's the norm today. It doesn't have to be gorgeous, it's got to be clean and neat.
I wish they bought it on 20 when they were under 100.
Yeah.
I went to that, they did, I was
Give
under
them
100.
away back then. Yeah. Oh, great.
I know investors kept 3 of them boarded up for years. Okay. They like 50 grand a piece.
Any other questions?
How do you recommend an agent how to attract listings? Is there anything you recommend to do?
I think
Build
you're-
profile,
you-
stuff like that, or?
Well, I'm fortunate enough, a lot of my clients are recycling in the market. But I'd say most of mine come from referrals or past clients. So how do you I mean, Zillow,
To expose yourself to get.
I really think, unfortunately, doing the right job for your current clients goes further than anything. I don't know. I just don't think there's a secret potion, but today I'm going to have, tomorrow I'm going to have 25 listings. I think it all comes down to, are you a one-hit wonder where you're just going to smash and grab and you're going to get your commission in the next 2 years and make as much money as you can, or are you going to make this a career? When it's a career, it's a marathon. It takes a little bit longer to get to that point, but when you get there, you're in, I don't want to say coast mode, but you don't have to pick up the phone as much. I think you do when you're new. You have to get outside your comfort zone. I mean, my first listing was a for sale by owner that I called up, but again, I brought someone along with me. I wasn't going to. I got my foot in the door. Now I got to secure this listing. Getting your foot in the door is just one piece of it. Now you got to get it. So you got to, be outside your comfort zone a little bit. But I think you either need to be on a team and bring your team member in, or you need to bring another agent in so you don't lose that deal. Because what good was making that appointment if you can't close it? And if you know that, it was a $450,000 house in Sutton, and I knew I was going to get 50% of it. Why risk losing? Bring somebody in.
Also, when you do open houses, I think your presentation at an open house can speak volumes to people come to the doors. Because they may be looking for a buy, but they also have a sell. And your presentation of your open house can secure you for a seller. I did the one on Pasadena. Nobody wants to live in that area, but I treated it like it was just a normal house. An area somebody's going to want it, went to town. The lady across the street, because her father passed away, called me and said, I want you to sell my house. I saw what you did with Pasadena. So your presentation, wherever you go when you're filling in, whether it's your house or not, an open house, is going to speak volumes.
I think real estate marketing, personal marketing, is the connecting of the dots. I think it's, something a little bit everywhere, and then they put it together. Spending thousands and thousands of dollars on one thing, I don't think is enough. I'd rather spend a couple $1,000s on multiple things than a couple $1,000s on a billboard. I just don't know that that's going to short term cement your reputation locally. So I think, sponsoring a little league team, putting your sign in the outfield, being on a program, and keep it localized. Don't go outside your area. I think if you live in a town, that's where you have the best possibility of building your brand. I think it would be a waste of money to live here and market in Westboro. You're going to get eaten by the sharks out there. It's never going to happen. So I think keep your business localized. Personally, that's what works.
The old adage, or the old thing that people used to say is activity breeds activity. Number one, show up to the office. Learn from each other. This is an environment of learning and sharing. So that's the most important thing. You want open houses. If you have no listings, look around the MLS and say, okay, who in my office has a listing I want to sit in for an hour or 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon? Call FSBOs, expireds, call FRIBOs, or rent by owners. The landlord might be sick of being a landlord. And if it's a for rent by owner, might have a vacant apartment, which will help it sell it quicker too. Door knocking, that would always be like at the bottom. If I had nothing else to do, I'd go door knocking. And I know a lot of people encourage going door knocking, but that should be after you've done all the other high priority activity stuff, I think.
Buyers are gold. Look, listings are fantastic, but when you're new, I think you got to just take buyers and you need to run them, because buyers become sellers.
Yep.
And when your buyers refer better than sellers do, I think personally, because you build a very personal relationship with a buyer. A seller is all professional. I'm not saying sellers won't refer, but I think buyers you're out with them every weekend. You're watching Johnny while they're touring the house. You're building a totally different relationship.
You're worried about the market, worried about the product.
And it is a relationship. When you meet a buyer, you build a relationship in the beginning, and then you start to show them properties. That's like you're dating. And then all of a sudden you find a house, and then you're really working hard for them. And so that's like getting into an engagement mode. And then all of a sudden you disappear after the home inspection. Where'd you go? So when you have a relationship with a buyer, you need to explain to them, listen, we've been going out, we've been doing this, and now all of a sudden and tell them, it's almost like we've been dating, but I'm going to have to ignore you for a little while. And I just explain to them that most of the stuff that happens after the home inspection is bank work, appraisal work. I'm going to be here for anything, we meet, any questions, please call me. But the next time we're gonna get together is to do the final walkthrough. You prepare them for that, they understand it. Because sometimes you just abandon them, ignore them, you know, like, "Where the heck is that?"
Yeah, so I mean, to answer your question, Tracy, I don't know that there's a magic formula. I just think if you do the right thing in each transaction, your business will grow. And if you when you're new, don't walk away from a $50,000 buyer, because they may have a $500,000 uncle that's up to yourself. Yeah, that's $500,000 house. And if you do a good job, and Brian Buffini talks about it when the father comes into the transaction, or whoever it is, build an ally, because that person is going to refer you too. If you shut out that person and say, you know what, I don't want your uncle coming, or I don't want your father coming to me, you just lost a huge pool of referring people. So find ways to make that buyer feel comfortable, make their parents love you, because they all own property. And I think that's the best way for you.
We were in a couple years ago, $900 rental, the first deal. The second deal was their parents' place in Lexington.
Nice.
So you never know.
You never know. Build your database. When I was building my database, I tell this story all the time. It's very true. I didn't grow up here. I grew up 70 miles. So most of my high school people were nowhere around here. But with access to Facebook and MLS, I can find out where everyone lives. So I was doing a lot of mailers at that time, only to my database, not to outside. I think get the people who know you to use you before you get the world to use you. Okay. So this person name was Kathy Brown. I hadn't seen her in 20 years. She was a friend of mine in high school. She lived in not Franklin, what's right now, Bellingham, and she had a $500,000 house. So for 6 months, I mailed her once a month. And she called me out of the blue. I haven't spoken to her in 20 years. She's like, I got your mailer the last 6 months. I felt like I had to call you. So that was a $500,000 sale. In the middle of that sale, another friend, a friend of hers who was a friend of mine from high school, was moving from New Jersey to Franklin, buying another $500,000 house. So one postcard to a contact from 20 years ago, well, 6 postcards, netted $1 million in sales from 2 people I hadn't spoken to before. So build your database, go through and find a way to consistently contact them, whether it's through mailers, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through email. I don't think one method is the best. I think you've got to kind of intertwine different methods. I think that's huge for that.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay.
Flush.
There must be a lot of people selling real estate today.
Let's hope.
How do I shut this out? Report.
We have this supposedly, and let's return to it.
Yeah.
We're holding the buyer. Yeah. The buyer, so we're holding the. Yeah, you made the bottom check up. Okay. And so the deal not happening. No, the building. Okay. You're trying to find it.
wanted to have kind of fun. I'm special, all right. And I don't wanna go through what I went through, that in-law.
Wasn't our list?
Wasn't our list, you know, it was covered, so.
Okay.
620 sounds right, that's when he was pursuing it. We had an offer accepted, did a home inspection, did a building inspection. And then, on work. Good, Mike, how are you? I know who it is, I know the seller. The building foreclosed, yeah, they are collateralized. So I could have Aaron do it, he's just planning on buying a house around now.
Hey, Roland, I was just wondering if you could send me that water tank you were talking about, how that makes sense.
When you meet with him Friday?
Oh, you did?
Thursday or Friday.
Oh. Maybe I missed it. I wasn't here.
Friday morning at 9.
At his house?
Yep.
No, it's all right. Thanks.
They've had, they've had surgery. So, she's not home. She'll be home all this week too.
Told me to.
She's not back to work again Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jay, it was a date.
I'll look at the spam or something, like, in case it was there. Sure.
Been laid up for a week. Week today, matter of fact. She had a few more days. She could have.
Okay.
She's working from home.
Thank you. Yeah, you just get,
Oh, yeah, no. Procedure. In, or they have the hand. It was a date. But she couldn't, she was all swollen. Surgery. I should be back to normal Monday. Hopefully. That's why I've been a little errand boy for the last week.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Let me know how that goes. I get the